City of Stevens Point Public Policy and General Government Committee meeting, recorded March 13, 2023.
All right, it is 6:10, and this is the Public Policy and General Government Committee meeting. And Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Fischler.
Here.
Kiemer.
Here.
Christensen.
Here.
Zarazua. Here. Kneebone.
Here.
All right. Item number 2 is the license list. And it looks like we've got two, one for Class A liquor license for Honey Bee Good Meadery LLC at 2041 Madison Street, Stevens Point, for a license period beginning March 21st, 2023, and a temporary Class B beer, Class B wine license for the Boys and Girls Club of Portage County, 941 Michigan Avenue, Stevens Point. And this is for the Portage County Taste of Wine and Cheese on April 21st, 2023 at 4501 Highway 66 in Stevens Point. Is that the airport?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion?
Kiemer, I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay. Second? And any concerns from law enforcement?
No concerns at all.
Okay. Discussion? None? Any questions or comments from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Oop, I forgot about Alder Kneebone. Any opposed, nay? And that motion carries. All right. And item number 3, request to hold Event Street closing for the Trivia Parade on April 14th, 2023. This is a reoccurring event. And it looks like that'll be held at the Trivia Parade. It'll start April 14th at 4:00 p.m., beginning in Lot Q of the University, and then ending at PJ Jacobs parking lot. And it looks like they're requesting police presence for an auxiliary officer. Any comments there, Chief?
None.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Alder Christensen?
I'll second.
Seconded by Kiemer. Discussion? Hearing none. Any questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none there. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. All right, and that is approved. Mayor, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to make sure we give it an extra half a second before calling for the nays because of the delay on Zoom.
Oh, right. Alder Kneebone.
She got her in right away this time. So.
I heard it, so, okay. All right, item number, 3B, Stevens Point Pride Parade, not parade, it's just an event, and that's a reoccurring event on June 10th, 2023, and it looks like that'll be held at Piffner Park at noon, June 10th, 2023, and I did not see anything regarding police presence. Is there any comments there, Chief? Or
No issues at all.
recommendations? Okay, all right. Is there a motion? All right.
Kneebone will move to approve.
Okay, we'll take Kneebone and seconded by Zarazua. Sound good? All right. Discussion? All right. Any questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We good, Mayor? Okay. All right, and that is approved. All right, item 3C, Stevens Point Juneteenth, held on June 17th, 2023. This is also a reoccurring event, and that'll also be held at Piffner Park. Looks like beginning at 8 a.m. And it does not note any police presence there. Any recommendations?
No issues at all.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion? Zarazua? Second?
I'll second.
All right, by Kiemer. Discussion? None? Any questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none? All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, that item is also approved. All right, item 3D, and is it Key Mobility? Key Mobility, okay. It looks like they're having a company picnic on August 19th, 2023, and this is also a reoccurring event for that business, and that's beginning at 3 p.m. at Pioneer Park, and it looks like they are requesting police presence there. All right. Is there a motion? Move to approve. Zerozua, okay. Seconded by Christensen. Discussion? Okay, hearing none. Questions, comments from the audience? None? All right, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Hearing none, that item is also approved. All right, item 3E is the Riverfront Jazz Festival on September 2nd and 3rd of 2023. This is also a reoccurring event, and that will be at 3:30 p.m. at Piffner Pioneer Park, and it does not look like they're requesting any police presence there.
Correct. No issues at all.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion? All right,
I'll move
Kiemer?
approval.
Any second? By Zerozua. All right. Discussion? Okay, hearing none. Questions, comments from the audience? Okay, hearing none. All right, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and that has also been approved. All right, lastly, there's an Easter egg hunt on April 8th, 2023. And it looks like
She
this
tries to get out of the car.
or not. It looks like there's an Easter egg hunt, and this is brought forward by the mayor. So, Mayor, what time does this start? I don't see a start.
10 a.m.
10 a.m., okay. So, and that's going to be in the square?
And I have much prettier maps. I did the one in your packet, and we had actual, like, people know what they're doing. So we can hand those out if you want. Slide them down for the record.
Okay.
So the annual Easter egg hunt has never really been a city function.
Okay.
It started out years ago by the Optimist Club, and they chose a few years back to, they felt that they couldn't continue to handle it. It used to be at Piffner Pioneer Park. And we then very quickly tried to find another group to do it. Muzzy Broadcasting had picked up that challenge, and we moved it from Piffner Pioneer Park to the Mid-State Technical College parking lot. We did that primarily because one year we had weather, much like you see this morning, and you can't exactly plow a park. So we moved it into the Mid-State parking lot, which was not much easier to clear snow. This year, we want to try and have it down at the square. I'm sorry, let's back up a second. Several months ago, Muzzy Broadcasting informed us that they did not have the ability to continue to staff, with the staff to put this together as well. So we quickly formed a group, myself, Christy Stacy, who is the director over at the Children's Museum, Ben Nuss, who is with Mid-State Technical College, and several other people, getting together volunteers. We will still have the Easter egg hunt, but we're going to try and move it to the square this year. Closing off the streets will allow us to make sure there's no vehicular traffic that might cause a problem with, you know, all the kids running around. It gives us a much more showcased area than the Mid-State parking lot, so that is our Plan A. Plan B is still the Mid-State parking lot. We don't need city approval for that, but we are hoping to close off all of the vehicle access to the square, and that's the map you see in front of you. So it will be at 10 o'clock. Everything will pretty much stay the same. We've got some generous donors who are supplying bicycles. Dave's Body Shop is putting in the bikes again, along with Larry's Helping Hand. We have a couple of community businesses that are putting in either cash or prizes that will have stuffed with eggs. We've got over 10,000 eggs. Dunkin' Donuts and Dairy Queen have both donated ice cream coupons, so those will be in there. It should be a pretty successful event this year, but first time on the square.
Awesome. It sounds like there's one animal, maybe in a bunny suit.
Right, and I wanted to be funny when I set it out, because they asked if there's any live animals, and I checked no, but then I'm like, well, wait a minute, we're going to have a rabbit bunny suit, so that was just meant for humor.
And then police presence couldn't hurt?
So we have not had police presence at any of the Easter egg hunts before. However, with, you know, telling people where to go and assisting people who need it, with talking with the chief, we may have some auxiliary present if any on-duty officers. The whole thing lasts like 15 minutes. Some on-duty officers wouldn't hurt.
Intervene in case there's stealing of eggs, perhaps.
Right, egg thieves. I don't think that happens either.
Exactly.
But no, really more just to direct people on where, because it's a new location. So we want to make sure that people understand there's 3 different age groups, line up by your age group's area, and helping with letting people know where they can go will be helpful.
Okay. Well, great. All right. So with that information, is there a motion?
I'm excited to make that in my district, so
Boy, I thought you'd all be
I
chicken.
move.
Super punny. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, seconded by Keemer. All right,
When you're
any
yolks.
discussion? Sounds like the mayor covered all the bases there. No, good. Any questions, comments from the audience? Yes?
I don't plan on attending.
Please state your name and address.
Bill Bushman, Elmwood Avenue, Stevens Point. As you distribute information with respect to this, probably a good idea to talk about parking if you're going to
We're on
walk
it.
off. You're on that.
Yep.
Good. I figured you would.
Thanks.
Good. Thank you.
All right, is there anybody else? Questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none? All right, all those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, hearing none, that has been approved. All right, and then let's see here. Item number 4 is for an ordinance requesting term limits for the mayor and alderpersons. So it looks like this was brought forward by Alder Dalton. Let's have her just maybe introduce and explain. Okay, you have the floor, Ms. Dalton.
Thank you, Alder Dalton, District 9. Limitations can help frame our goals and intention, and that was kind of the mindset I had with thinking about this policy proposal. A number of constituents had suggested it to me over the year and finally got some pieces in the order, and I think applying that firstly to a kind of the trajectory of a citizen in our community, first to a citizen who might be considering running for an office, I think the idea of term limits helps to put kind of like a time frame on it so that they, as they're making a decision to run or not run, if they know it's 2, 4, up to 10, 8 years, they're like, do I have the time and the wherewithal to do this for this period of time? Am I interested in putting my energy towards this at this period in my life? So firstly for that, as like a citizen who's thinking about it, then for those of us who are in the office or for a citizen who is in the elected office, I think the idea of a term limit creates a finality to our role, and doing so creates some intention and purpose in doing so, knowing that the office is not about us being in there, and it's about us being a part of the community, and that the city and its operations and its governance will continue beyond us in that office. So I think that's just kind of a sobering reminder for all of us in a position that is elected. And then thirdly, in creating term limits, the idea is that in some way there is more participation from people and more churning of the pot. And then so when people leave the office, I think even Alder Plaisance, who's only been on for but a few months, has seen that former alders continue to participate in meetings, speaking on behalf of things. And so I think even as a citizen who maybe has served and serves out a full term limit, I think they do a lot of service continuing for the city in that they have lived experience in the role, they have a greater understanding of city operations, and whether they show up to meetings or write, I know that they are people who have engaged with their neighbors and their community in a very high level, and so will continue to do so after their service in office. And I think that that is one of the benefits in having more people participate, is that they have a more thorough knowledge, and whether or not they had a positive or negative experience, they probably still continue to talk to their neighbors and care about it. I know it was something when I first moved to this community, I served in another community on council, and when I was first here, I was looking at council meetings and doing that, and I would talk to people casually at Frisbee League about it or something, or like, why are you following city politics? And for me, that was a way to engage in a community and start to begin to understand how to participate. And so I think that having some limitations on that is useful. And one of the things when I was proposing it what you have before you has 3 terms or 12 years for a mayor and 10 years or 5 terms for an alder. And those were the years length that I had in mind, in particular because I didn't want to create complications with its implementation. But as you probably read and understood from going through it, if we were to approve this and implement it, we would be beginning at year 0 for everyone. And so my friendly suggestion would be that we maybe alter it to 8 years for both alders and mayor, which was kind of my original intention, but I didn't want to, for lack of a better term, offend anyone by being like, let's put term limits that would limit you. So 8 and 8 would be my desired attention, but as it's proposed, I'm okay with that too.
Great, thank you. All right, is there a motion for discussion?
Yeah, I had a resident request that we postpone this item until after the election. So I'm just going to bring that forward as a motion, and if the committee agrees, it agrees. The idea was that this would be a public hearing in April with a public policy, and it would give residents time to be informed that this is being discussed and, share their thoughts with their alders or representatives, and then possibly attend. So I make a motion to postpone. I think it's an important discussion and I would like to have it, and I think there's broad support for this, but again, it's up to the committee to decide if they support that idea or not.
Okay, the motion is to postpone. Is there a second?
I guess I would second that. I think the other thing it would do too is give us a chance to get some more. This is a pretty major change in structure, and I'd be curious, I don't know how many other municipalities have term limits. If those that do, what are typical term limits? I'd kind of like to see what else is out there, and so just, I guess I think it's probably more important to make a good decision than a quick decision. So I guess I would second that and be supportive of the postponement for a month.
Alder Zarazuya, any discussion, comments?
I guess my only thought is saying to do it after the election. It's always before an election, no matter when we discuss this. There's always an election. So I don't know about the timing, but I would agree with postponing it to allow for a bigger discussion.
Okay.
I guess I would like just to have the chance to talk to my constituents too and see what their thoughts are. I mean, I saw it on Friday, but I didn't get a chance to bounce by a lot of people. I think it's important to get input.
Okay. I do have a couple letters that I did promise to read from folks who had submitted those. So the first one is from Michael Richards of 1620 Clark Street, and I believe he had also emailed you as well. I'm sorry, Ginger.
That's all right.
Daylight savings time, Mayor. Okay. So this is Michael Richards, and I have concerns regarding the agenda item that addresses aldermanic and mayoral term limitations scheduled for the Monday Public Policy and General Government meeting. Introducing this proposed ordinance change to the full council 2 weeks before the spring election seems a tad inappropriate. Many residents are unaware of this proposal. A 3-day notice via an online agenda is insufficient for municipal code revision of this magnitude and importance. Other cities pursuing a similar code change did so by notifying the public and encouraging an inclusive dialogue spanning several months. This 11th hour proposal fails to provide sufficient notice for such a monumental change. This item should be tabled or postponed to a date after the election or indefinitely. To be clear, I support having this discussion, but not days before the election with such a short notification to the public. Please provide sufficient public notice and encourage a public dialogue before sending this proposed ordinance change to the full council. Your consideration is very much appreciated. Another letter is from former Mayor Andrew Helderson, and he states, while I absolutely support the institution of term limits at the federal level, I find there to be no reason why we would need to do so at the local level and strongly encourage alderpersons to vote no. In fact, I find it interesting that the topic is even up for discussion, as there seems to be really no direct focused reason or situational reason for doing so. The electorate has the ability each and every election cycle for themselves to decide whether a mayor should be reelected or an alderperson should be reelected. a simple democratic process. In fact, one could argue that it is difficult enough to find folks to run for these offices, and this would only exacerbate the situation. If districts are willing to send their representative back, so be it. I found as mayor that some of the most reflective and knowledgeable older persons were clearly those who were in office for numerous terms and had developed a strong understanding and historical perspective of processes, funding streams, budget cycles, staffing, etc. I could go on. What is interesting right now is the lack of a multi-term alderperson in the current Common Council, and as I understand it, currently the most senior alderperson will not be seeking re-election. Fresh ideas are great, and turnover can lead to a new direction, but understanding where we were and where we came from to know where we are going, to me, is critical. As mayor, I would agree with several of the longest-serving alderpersons, and some I would disagree with, but I certainly can tell you that the background and information they always had at their disposal and the way they would display and support their ideas was a direct correlation to their time in office and historical perspective in those very issues. I strongly encourage all the committee members to vote no, and should this clear the committee, all alderpersons to vote no at the council meeting. Best, Andrew Helferson. So those were 2 letters that I received, and I received a couple phone calls too. So I guess, in my opinion, I think definitely more public discussion should be had. As we know, based on certain projects that, it's been made to our, it's been brought forth that more discussion should be had on some larger projects and larger ideas. So I think that's fitting here. So I guess the motion on the floor is to postpone. Are there any questions, comments from the audience at this time? Yes, sir. Go ahead. Please. Unfortunately, no, because the camera needs to see you, but please state your name and address.
Bill Bushman again, Elmwood Avenue, Stevens Point. I think there's both good and bad, and certainly warrants, I think, more discussion on that issue. I didn't really pay too close attention when I looked at the agenda items, but one thing I would think might merit some consideration if it does get passed in terms of term limits, there should be potentially a discussion about lame duck decision-making, potentially for those people who may be at the end of their term. I don't know how you define which items they can or cannot vote on, but it's just something for maybe consideration if you get to that point of the discussion. Other than that, I say that there's good points both ways between Mr. Halverson as well as, was it Mr. Richardson?
Yeah.
Yeah, so valid points. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments, questions? Yes, sir. Please come to the podium. Name and address, please.
Hi. My name is Craig Tesh, 1100 Frontenac, Stevens Point. I've got to ask you, you're Ms. Dalton?
Me? No, Ms. Dalton is back here.
I'm sorry?
Alder Dalton is back here.
Yeah. I guess I got to ask on these term limits. I'm sorry, I don't know the individuals.
I'm Alder Fischler.
I'm sorry?
I'm Alder Fischler.
Okay. I guess the reason I'm asking about all this is because, I brought this up about term limits. And I read something on the MetroWire about how they were being proposed. The mayor, 3 terms, and then, of course, the alders, 4 terms. And but then they could just be out for 1 term and then come back in again. And I guess I'm looking at things like, as an example, the mayor, he goes out, let's say he likes Hawaii so much that he decides to stay out there for a full term, and then he comes back. He could come back in and be a mayor. If, let's say, Ms. Johnson, her workmate and down the street neighbor decides to take her place while she's running for mayor, and the next term she could come back in potentially as a person running. Is that right, or?
I think, and maybe Alder Dalton could clarify here.
Actually, maybe I don't understand.
No, I'm happy to clarify the proposal. The intention was, and is proposed, is cumulative. So when you begin service as an alder, if you serve 2 terms and you take a break, you can still serve 3 more, because 5 is the proposed for alder. But you wouldn't be, 4, sorry. And then for mayor, you could serve, 1 term, be out, and then serve 2 more, but you wouldn't start over. It's cumulative in your service.
I understand that, but my thinking is that, they have the 4 term, I understand the cumulative, but 4 terms and 2 terms, and then you can't do it again. Now, he could still run as a council, as an alder person after that if he so desired. But it would be, what I had proposed originally was 2 terms for mayor and 4 terms for alderperson. And that would be it. And you're right, it could be cumulative. If they lost, let's say as an example, they could come back in, but only for that amount, and then they could never do it again.
Not, so they couldn't be mayor and alder.
As this policy is written.
Well, they wouldn't be both. I'm saying, well, you're saying, now, let's say as an example that he becomes an alderperson, but he's already been an alderperson. Is that
Excuse me, sir?
Is that retro? How does that work?
Excuse me?
Yeah.
Sir, if you want to maybe have a side conversation outside, like, I guess, what is the recommendation for
So
Just
just
staying on track.
a point of clarification. First of all, there shouldn't be any engagement in a debate. Comments need to be directed to the chair of whatever committee it is, and if there's a question that needs to be answered, the chair will then direct the most appropriate person to answer that. However, I did want to point out, if I may, that the ordinance that's proposed is exactly as Mr. Tesh says. It says, no person shall be eligible to be nominated, elected, or serve as an alderperson if that person has previously held office of an alderperson for 4 or more consecutive terms, unless 1 or more full terms has elapsed since the person last held office. What that says is you can have 4, and then you can come back as long as 1 term elapsed. There's the same thing for mayor, that no person shall be eligible to be nominated, elected, or to serve as mayor if that person has previously held the office of mayor for 3 or more consecutive terms, unless 1 or more full terms has elapsed since the person last held office. That's what the proposal says. Honestly, it's irrelevant at this point because the motion is to postpone. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear to everybody on the proposals.
And by the way, when you're talking about him, I was directing her, but I was told that she was the one, so she came up here on her own. I didn't direct her to come up here.
Yes, I directed her to come up here because she was the one who put the measure forward, so yes.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I guess, so the motion on the table is to postpone at this point. And is there anyone else who wanted to come forward with any discussion or questions? Okay, anyone online, Mayor? No? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I see no hands.
All those in favor of postponing, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that is none. And so, again, that has been approved to postpone. Okay. Item number 6.
Just for clarification, that's postponed till after the election?
I guess we did not discuss
I
that.
was thinking the next public policy meeting in April.
In April. So
When the new alders-
new electeds
Yeah.
will not have taken office yet.
Yeah, I think for me, it was more just giving people time to think about it, submit their ideas, alders to reach out to their
We'll
constituents.
make sure and get it on next month's committee agenda then.
Okay. So,
By we, I mean
clerk, if
Gary.
you want to make a note. You're already noting it yourself. All right, item number 6, discussion, item number 5, ordinance amendment repealing subsections 1, sub 5 is section 30.08, building numbering and renumbering subsection 6, sub 8, sub 6, sub 8, sorry. Okay.
Anybody need clarification?
Maybe a little.
Director Karnowski's out, so he's tending to his baby daughter. So really, this isn't going to be renumbering anyone's house. We are not, Adam's here. Great. Adam, you want to take care of this?
I know this was discussed at the.
Yeah, no, there's no renumbering, it's just who's responsible for that, should it happen?
Yeah, correct. There's no renumbering that's happening, and it's merely transferring verbiage from the building code to the zoning code, plus some additional code provisions as far as enforcement and potentially the need for monument signs being installed. Right.
Thank you.
I'll make a motion for approval.
Alder Kimmer, is there a second? Is there a second?
I believe Nebo doesn't want in on it.
Yeah.
Kneebone will second.
All right. Okay. I'm going to give you a chance. All right. All right. Any discussion? Questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none. All those in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, that has been approved. All right, and then, oops, losing my space here. One moment. Item number 6, discussion only on extension of licensed premise policy exception for the USGA Men's Senior Open. I didn't see any information on this. Is that?
You didn't, because there is nothing. This was brought forward through my office, and if I may.
Yes.
This came out through discussions that I've been having along with the planning for the USGA and some of the groups that we've been speaking to. It came out that, we're going to have tens of thousands of people in our community for the 10 days or so of the tournament. And these people are going to need someplace to sleep. We've kind of taken care of that already. They're going to need someplace to eat and recreate and maybe have a few drinks. We're trying to do our best to make sure that everybody is taken care of properly. And we already have the downtown open intox relaxation that goes every weekday till 9 p.m. to allow outdoor seating. They don't even have to be at an establishment. They can take a walk down to the park if they want. This came up in discussions about, could we offer something temporarily for other areas of the city? The north side of town, the south side, the east side. There are bars and restaurants there that would benefit from having some additional space for those tens of thousands of people to come in. There's no material because it's just a concept. We've talked about it once at staff and what would it look like. Generally speaking, if we were to have a permit process that it was able to be done on the property. And I'll give an example here, Final Score. They've got the main building, which is the premise that's licensed, but they could, for those 10 days, have some additional outdoor seating, picnic tables or whatever, to have people sit outside to eat and drink. We do have the cafe-style seating that's allowed, but this would be a little broader and only temporarily. Places like Kubi's on the south side, or, Partners, sure. Those sorts of things. And then we started talking about this, so the request for extension of premise, there's not a standard form. We ask places like Partners to bring us your homecoming plan. What's the layout going to be? We require fencing and all this other stuff. This wouldn't be a homecoming style event. Golfers are probably a different class of recreators. But having something similar to that, when the clerk and the city attorney were talking about it, maybe part of this discussion should be putting a procedure in place for a request for extension of premise. So if the body determines that this is something we want to pursue, we could have something as soon as council for just that temporary piece, which would include a streamlined application that could be adopted for all future extension of premise requests. But really what we're looking for is something rather timely just for the USGA. Now, people would still have to apply. There would be a permit fee to cover the costs associated with processing the permit, making sure everything is on the up and up, and we tossed around the idea of $25. But we want to do it hopefully sooner rather than later, because they have to do it, get approval at a meeting. We would still have to approve these. Approve it at a meeting, and that would only leave us, June would probably be too late for our June meeting. So that would leave May and hopefully April if we can get something up for consideration at next week's council meeting. If it's too quick, we'll wait. But I would really like to see something, if we're going to consider it, let's do it in April, so the bars and restaurants that want to take advantage of this have May's meeting to get that approval before the June tournament. Yeah,
Other
oh,
camera.
sorry.
Thank
Force
you.
to have it.
Would the fire marshal or fire department be involved with this approval process just in terms of, capacity and
Yes,
fire code
and that was
safety
one of
and-
the biggest things that were brought up, is capacity. Because even if you had people outside, there's not much of a fire danger. However, you still need the proper facilities, you need access, should something happen outside, you need access to safety equipment. So yes, the fire department and the police department would be involved in every review, just like they are now for extension of premise. We just try and streamline the process if we could.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Alder Nebo? Yes.
I think this is a great idea, and I like the idea of getting a process in place and doing it quickly, because this is a great event for the city, and if we pull this off really well, who knows what other great events will come here in the future. So I think we've got an opportunity to really roll out the welcome mat here and let people know that Stevens Point's where it's happening, and this is where they want to bring their major event. So I'm on board.
Thank you.
And, Madam Chairman, I would ask that anybody on council who's here, or any members of the public, weigh in one way or the other too, because if the consensus is at the committee level to go forward, but council chooses not to, we're wasting time and energy. But if the general consensus is yes, move forward, bring something to council next week, then we're ready to do that.
So I think it's a good idea too. I mean, and especially like Alder Nebone said, that if we have something on file and a big event comes through, then, they have the opportunity to act fast. Because, well, technically, Mayor, how many, if there are big events that come through, usually they go through the city first and understand like how long, people have time to plan for that stuff usually.
We do, and I can tell you that we've been working on this USGA event for over a year already. This just recently came up in meeting with some groups and talking about the tournament. They're like, well, what can we do? We want to make sure people are able to take advantage of it. We want people that are visiting to make sure they have a good experience, and we want the businesses, the local businesses, to benefit from it as much as possible.
Have there been a lot of requests for this premises extension?
There have been 0 requests at this point because there's not a policy in place.
Right.
So what the discussion is I told those people that I would bring it to the group and see, and if there is something, I believe we will have 24 or more.
Okay. I think it's a good opportunity to bring it forward to council. I think it would have I think people would be, welcoming it, with open arms. So, I don't know, I guess, do I have to say, yes, let's move it to council?
Madam Chairman, if you would invite anybody else who has comments on it, I would appreciate it, just so we get a handle on if people are, the committee's in favor of it, it seems, but we don't know what the rest of council or the public thinks.
Sure. Are any questions or comments from the public on this specific agenda item? Yes, Alder Shuda.
Can we call you Shuda McGavin?
Just for a week.
Just for a week.
Dean Shuda, Alder, District 8. I've attended major golf events in the past, and the cities that had these events did exactly what you guys are talking about today. So I would highly recommend it. I know going to those, you're always looking for some place to go, and especially it being in the summer, warm, the outside really appeals to people. So I think it's a great idea. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments from the audience? Hearing none?
Okay,
then I guess-
we don't need action. We'll have a proposal for you next week.
All right. Oh, yes, Alder
I guess one final comment, it might be worthwhile to reach out to the Tavern League, and just, let them know. Okay, I figured you had. All right, thank you.
All right. And that item has been exhausted, and it is 6:49, and this meeting is adjourned.
Video recordings of these meetings are available on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.